How would I find deals if I was literally starting from zero in the middle of a market that I had no idea about? Welcome to the Nashville Money Guys channel. My name is Brandon McDonald. We're a hard money lending company based out of Nashville, Tennessee. What I want to do is help you get better at finding deals so that you can find a deal and then come use us to borrow hard money to do your deal. That's why I'm going to go through this. I don't remember how to screen record. Ask ChatGPT, how do I... That's one of the coolest search features ever. ChatGPT will just kind of cut through all the BS that Google typically gives you. So how do we pick a random market? A random state in middle America. Kansas. Easy enough. Pick a city in Kansas with a population between 50,000 and 100,000. Manhattan, Kansas. Let's do this. I wasn't even excited about this before, but I've never even heard of Manhattan, Kansas. All right, so here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna go to Zillow because everybody typically has access to Zillow. Didn't spell Manhattan completely wrong. Manhattan, Kansas. Search. By the way, I'm the worst speller in the entire planet. But I've found that I don't really care that much. It just doesn't seem like a thing that's that important. It does make me look kind of stupid. Here's what we start with. I started with Manhattan, Kansas, and you can see how huge this outline is here, but that's kind of what I want. I want a 30,000 foot view. I'm starting as far back as I can, and then we're going to zoom in. What I'm looking for is sold houses that are in a certain kind of price range that seems fairly consistent. Oh, Kansas, are you going to do the thing where you can't actually show me prices? If Manhattan, Kansas, some states can't actually show me what the house sold for, and if that's the case, then we have to bail on Kansas. But the concept would still be the same. Yeah, Kansas may be one of those states where they don't actually have the data publicly available. Got to do a new state. Got to do a new state. Pick a state in middle America that is not Kansas. Bellevue, Nebraska. All right, let's try Bellevue because we may run into the same issue. So what would I do if I was trying to look for deals inside of Kansas? I would then go find a realtor. I would find somebody who had access to this information, and I would figure out a way to work with them and either get a login from them by having them make me like an assistant or some other version of that. Because what you have to do is you have to have access to the information. You have to have it. There's no other choice. You can't farm this out to somebody else who's going to actually do a good job, because no realtor is going to care about bringing you deals as much as you care about bringing you deals. That's what we've typically found. We're at the 30,000 foot view of Bellevue, Iowa. Oh my God. It's because I saw Iowa on the line here. We're right on the line. Bellevue, Nebraska. I'm sorry. I had way too much coffee this morning. Here's what I'm noticing. Big river that's going on this side. Typically properties that are on the river, if you've got a decent view, are going to be expensive. So I'm going to zoom in just out of curiosity. If we're over near the river, what am I seeing? See how I've got sold clicked up here? So what I want to do is I'm going over to the more button over here, because what I don't want is comps. There's so much yellow on here, so many sold houses. I don't want the houses that have sold 3 years ago. So we're at 12 months right now, and that's a pretty decent amount of volume. Let's go 6 months, apply. The reason is, and you can even tighten it up more if you wanted to, you could go 3 months, because again, we still have a decent amount of volume here. What I want to do, keeping that 30,000 foot view, is I typically know that if we get over $300,000 for a purchase price of a property, the rents don't make sense. So that's a really good rule of thumb. If you're looking for a rental property and you actually want it to cash flow, unless the rents are super crazy, you typically want to be 300K or below. Now, what I clicked on, just zooming in real quick, what do we see down here? 265, 115, 230, so south of Mission Street. A little bit north, kind of similar. Now we're getting into a little bit more expensive stuff right here in the middle on South Harville Drive. Go back up, we're getting into, there's some more parks, it looks like, up here. So these probably are a little higher price. Curious, down here on Mission Drive, I'm also noticing the density and consistency of these roads versus up here, where these are a little bit more potentially spread out. But just out of curiosity, I'm gonna zoom in right here and I'm gonna just start clicking around. What's 287 get us? Okay, so that's a commercial building. 240, 4-bed, 2-bath, 1,600 square feet. Let's see what on the low end. Let's see 85. What does 85 get us? A 1-bed, 1-bath, 1,188 square feet. More than likely, that's not advertised correctly because it's probably not an actual 1-bed, 1-bath at that many square feet. But that also could spell opportunity because if it's listed as a 1-bed, 1-bath, but you know that it's almost 1,200 square feet, it's pretty easy to make that into a 2 or a 3 bedroom house unless it's just a terrible, terrible layout. Let's click around a little bit more. 160, 2-bed, 1-bath. Okay, now what I want to try to do is, let's see if this doesn't often work terribly well. That's what I thought might happen. When you click the for rent, you're like, oh, that's not super awesome. This is where things get a little difficult. Finding what units are actually renting for. But here's what I'm gonna do. And this is probably the least efficient way to do it, but this is what I'm gonna just try it. I wanna know what the name of this little area is down here. Paradise Park. See that? Mission Avenue, Hayworth Park, Jerry Gilbert Park. What I'm going to do is I'm going to search. Let's go back to for sale. I'm going to make sure that I'm not getting super crazy with. Oh, no, I'm looking at sold. Sorry. So down here in Paradise Park, there's not a lot of stuff that's sold at all. So I don't know the name of this area. Let's ask ChatGPT what the name of this area is. What's the name of the neighborhood in Bellevue, Nebraska that is just south of West Mission Avenue, period? Streets include Lincoln Road, Clay Street, Calhoun Street, South Crawford, Jackson, Madison, South Lane. Old Town Bellevue is what it's calling me. So again, that's me using a search engine that's significantly smarter than Google. Old Town Bellevue. So what I'm going to go do over here is I'm going to add another tab and I'm going to say for rent Bellevue, Nebraska, Old Town Bellevue, and just see what comes up. Bellevue, Nebraska homes for rent, Old Town apartments for rent. And what I'm going to do is just start clicking through all this stuff out of curiosity. Okay, apartment guide. That's not a terrible way to start because a lot of times apartments and houses are going to correlate at least a little bit. Okay, so it's even outlining the area over here, just north of Paradise Park. So we've already figured out our frame of reference. 1.3K. Let's click on you. What are you? You're a commercial space for $1,250, 1-bed, 1-bath. Okay, so we're not interested in that. 715. Okay, so now studio, 1-bath, 600 square feet, 715 a month. So to me, what this tells me is that we're on the right path, because if that studio would have been like $500, I probably would have said, this is probably not an area that we want to be in. Just it's kind of crappy because the price per square foot is less than $1 a square foot per month. But at $715 and the condition it's in, like it's got, you know, if you look down here, you've got laminate countertops, you've got a tiny sink over in the corner, white appliances, kind of a little dated cabinets, you've got mismatched flooring, you don't have central heat and air, you've got a hotel unit. So like this is not like a super amazing rental. 1.1K. And what I'm doing is just learning about the area, and I'm going to go in multiple different areas and or multiple different websites, and I'm going to start looking around and kind of learning. So the other thing is these apartments that are here, this isn't like a large apartment complex. Like this is probably something built in the 60s or 70s, and it's a quad or a sixplex, something like that. But it looks decent. 2-bed, 1-bath, 720 square feet for $1,050. That's good. That's good because that tells me that if we can get into a house, likely that 1,050 is going to go up into the $1,200, $1,300, $1,400 range, but we need to find it. And so let's keep clicking around. Rent.com. Rent.com. That may be a resource that I've never used, that maybe it's a thing that would be kind of cool to go check out. Is a different thing. So let's click on forrent.com. Again, what I'm doing is I'm just building out different ways to search starting from absolute zero. But how far out of, let's see if we search in here, Bellevue. Eight houses. Let's just push search. Hey, look at all that, 28 matches. Okay, so what now from scratch, what I'm doing is going, hey, realtor.com actually had a decent amount of listings here. So a lot of these are condos, not a lot of like single family stuff, which makes sense to me because people are basically using realtors to list this stuff, which is why it's coming up for rent on realtor.com, because it's hitting the MLS and then realtor.com is moving this over. And then if you look over on the right-hand side, actually, on Zillow, that aggregator thing that I was talking about, so going to realtor.com, this is the same, basically the same thing. Now, this is interesting. This is a different one. So let's see where you are. That's a nice looking house. Memorial Drive, 3-bed, 3-bath, 2-car garage for $2,700 a month. Let's click on see all 16 photos. So what I'm looking for is kind of an age and quality of the house, size of the lot, those types of things. Still got some carpet, but we've got some hardwoods. We've got some faux beams up here. We've got some stained wood, but still like carpet. It's not super updated. Laundry's in the basement, like kind of an unfinished space. Interesting. So this isn't that nice, but that may be one of the reasons that it's still listed for rent at $2,700. Dark stained cabinets. Like this to me looks like a rehab that was probably done in like the early 2000s. This was kind of the theme at that point in time. Nope, don't want to share. Thought I was Xing out. Interesting. Okay. But that's $2,700 for a 3-bed, 3-bath. And it was off of Memorial, which I thought I remember seeing Memorial. So we're a little north of where we were wanting to be before. New construction. Okay, that's also interesting because that tells me that there's some potential upside in this area where developers have gone in and seen enough movement, basically enough margin that they've justified going in and trying to do some brand new construction. All right, 3-bed, 2-bath. Okay, this is a decent little comp here. $1,650 a month, 1,800 square feet. Little split level, but it's simple. They've got granite, they've got a tile backsplash, but they painted the original cabinets, white appliances, nothing super fancy. That's a horrible idea. I get real judgy on like design stuff. Interesting. So this is like a halfway renovated house, but it's pretty clean. Okay, that's an interesting shot because that is the winter and we're like deep into the summer. I don't know if that's just something that they'd captured when there was snow there and they said, let's post that because it's a cool picture. And hopefully not because the unit has been on the market for that long. Let's use that as a benchmark though. 3-bed, 2-bath. 1,881 square feet for $1,650 a month. So I'm going to write that down. And honestly, I don't think that the square footage matters too much. The fact that you've got two, most likely a split level like this, they'll have 2 living spaces and then you'll have the bedrooms. But I think that this is probably going to be a decent comp. Let's go back now and let's look at some for sale properties that are in here. Because now what I'm looking for is how does the math work based on deals that I could potentially buy and then fix up, and then list for rent. Let's go to, you know what? Let's just see what's even for sale over here. We haven't looked, not very much. Probably wouldn't want to pay $210. That's a 2-bed, 1-bath. But let's just see, is it renovated? You've got a drive pass with the separate garage. So that could be an interesting one to like call the city and see if potentially you could actually add or change that back garage into a bedroom or its own little separate unit. You wouldn't want to just do a bedroom. But that's probably not something that we would want because of the price. So let's go in here because we're looking for a deal. And there's just not that many houses that are over here for sale, which is not a bad thing. That tells you that this area is reasonably in demand. 140. Curious. What does 140 get you over here? 2-bed, 1,200 square feet. Okay, that's interesting. Lot seems kind of big. You're up a hill and the driveway is absolutely destroyed, which could be a problem. Why do people keep texting me? Okay, so this is a renovation that somebody just said, I'm either out of money or I'm done. I'm not going to actually finish this. So you can see in these pictures, it looks like they got in and sprayed paint. They didn't actually do any of the flooring stuff. These pictures are horrible. Cabinets in front of the windows. To me, this smells like desperation, which smells like you could potentially get a better deal on this. I'm super curious, could you get another bedroom out of this? And then could you do some work? Because this is honestly just about exactly what you're looking for. I have no idea about this layout. The house looks like it could be just chaos. Full unfinished basement, some brick on the inside, heat and air unit. Wow, did they do like an extension on the side? What on earth? You have like a Hobbit chimney? That is wild. Okay, this is a really interesting one. Now, I think most people are looking at this and going, that's way too much work for the price. I probably agree, but this smells like a desperate person. So to me, what I want to do now is I go, okay, 1322 Franklin Street. Let's go find out some information about this thing. Let's go see if we can figure out when this thing sold. Let's use price cut, $9,000. Wonder how long you've been listed for. Built in 1956. No HOA, minutes from local schools. 4 days on Zillow, but they cut the price recently. So that may be that they pulled the house off and put it back on, which happens frequently to kind of, basically that will re-kick the thing out to agents that are looking, that have auto searches set up in the area. Total structure area, 2,629 square feet. Total interior livable area, 1,221. But that tells me that, okay, finished area below ground, which we know that there's a basement. That tells me that there is the potential to finish that basement out and do something with this. Foundation, subdivision, tax assessed value. That's a decent thing to know. Okay, annual tax amount, $3,300. That's also something good to know. That's more than Nashville would be. Now, when we get into analyzing the actual numbers, that's where that would have come up. Because $3,300 a month is like, or $3,300 a year, that's not nothing. Like $225 a month extra that you're having to pay just in property taxes. Let's keep going. Estimated market value. And Zillow's not going to know that stuff because, okay, price history. This is what I want to see. Look at this. Show more. I want to see when this person bought it. March of 24. Let's keep going. Look at all this. Okay. 10/31/17, it sold for $35,000. Now that's a while ago. So the question is, was it a landlord who bought the thing, rented it out, decided he was going to renovate it, owned it for the last 7 years, and then decided, no, I'm not going to. But in February, listed it for $150,000. Look at this. Listing removed, listed back for sale, listing removed, listed for sale. So the realtor's playing the game. They're probably putting a listing plan in place that's whatever. Oh, let's list it for 45 days and then let's pull it. Let's list it for, what is that? Maybe they switch realtors? I don't know. So we're doing a deeper dive analysis on this particular house and we're finding out like what is happening with this thing. Well, I'm trying to do an analysis where I'm understanding what the thought of the person who's listing this for sale is and how potentially what their pain points are. Man, this is super interesting. All right, let's go back up and let's try to find out more information about this particular house, which is 1322 Franklin Street. Let's go over here and let's just enter in this. And what I want to do is drive the street a little bit. So you can see this thing kind of sitting up. Because if it's sitting next to like a prison or something horrible where you'd be like, no, I'm not interested in living next to a prison, maybe that changes something. But look how big that lot is. Like you can see how kind of relatively small these houses are next door. That's interesting to me because what that triggers is, could I build another unit on this? Or could I sell some of the land to someone else to build a unit on, offsetting some of my costs for the rental? Because look how close together those are compared to the subject property that we're looking at. How do you get to that? Okay, so single driveway up, everybody's on hills. By the way, this type of thing, when you see these types of walls, that is crazy expensive. You do not want to have to get into building houses or renovating houses where you're going to have to do that type of work too. The one major deal that we've lost money on in the past 15 years was a lot that was a house that was halfway completed and it was up a major hill and none of the infrastructure was done on the site, and it just ate us alive. Bigger lots. Okay, so not super consistent with, wow, what are you? Okay. St. James United Methodist. So that's a really nice church that's right there on the street. That's a really good sign, because what that tells me is there may be a community in that area, and there may be a community member who wants to be a part of that church, who would want to potentially live in this house. The other thing about like nicer churches, which that's a nicer church, is oftentimes they'll have volunteer groups that are going around that are kind of helping neighbors, making sure that they're taking care of the properties. But as I'm scrolling around here, what I'm looking for is overall consistency and quality of the houses. And I'm noticing in general, everybody's taking care of their stuff. Like, this doesn't look to me like a rental neighborhood that's super beat up. The houses are a little bit on the older side, which means that typically when you're getting into a rehab on an older house, it's going to cost more money. But architecture is kind of interesting. Let's go back up to the subject property again, and I'll show you what I'm looking for when I'm looking on the outside here. So that Methodist church, their parking lot goes all the way back to the back up here. Now, what would I do if I saw something that was just completely unappealing in the area? Would I totally discount it? No, I wouldn't completely discount the house. What I would do is I would adjust mentally what I think the value is going to be, because obviously, all right, you see this little wall here, this wood wall, eventually that will fall over. But do the renters care about your front yard? No, they don't care. Man, I'm so curious, how much land does this guy own? And sometimes you can tell by the mowing. Aha! Aha! Power line, overhead power line, right next door. Whoa, what on earth? Look at this. It switches from August 2011, and you see the power lines, and you see the front porch on the house. Look at this. And then when I click back, it switches up to October of 22. They've ripped everything off the front, and now you have like a full white house. That is wild. I don't know why they wouldn't have had that information on Google Maps before. Why wouldn't they have had that? All right, so let's keep digging back in here. Charles Reed Community Center, like right next door. People could view that as a good thing or a bad thing, but the fact that it's like well taken care of, and maybe I'd do some Googling on what type of events go on at the Charles S. Reed Community Center. Because if they're like, we do heavy metal concerts every 2 weeks, then that might not be the most appealing thing for people to live next to. Okay, so quality of the houses to me looks like they're getting maybe a little bit lower. got more cars that are parking on the street. You got kind of some work vehicles. You got, and I don't know if this is going to be here all the time. You got somebody like a scrap metal guy who's coming and taking stuff. I don't know if, again, if that person lives there all the time. That's less appealing. Okay, nice. Actually, cemeteries are amazing because they're just a big open area that you can come walk. So if you've got pets, I'm totally into this area. For a rental, I am completely into this area. So here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna come back and let's start running some numbers and let's start making some basic assumptions. Welcome back. It's the afternoon. Let's dive into actually acting like we're going to treat this as a rental. So we're gonna make some assumptions, and I think that this is the smartest way to look at this. Let's assume it takes $20,000 to rehab the house. And then we'll run it at 40, then we'll run it at 60, then we'll run it at 80. So let's just run the gamut of all the different rehab dollar amounts that it's going to take, because that's an easy calculation to plug into this thing. So what I did was I asked ChatGPT, good old ChatGPT, what Section 8 pays for a 4-bedroom rental in this area. And what it came back with was $2,146. $2,146. Now, Section 8 sometimes will be high of retail and sometimes they'll be low, but it's a decent benchmark to look up because the worst case scenario is you get this thing ready and you rent it Section 8 for $2,146 a month or a range. I think that it gives you some context to think about, because if they said we'll pay $1,200 a month for a 4-bedroom in this area, then you would say no, I can't make these calculations work at all. But the fact that $2,146 on a house that it looks like you can buy right now for 140 grand and then needs work tells me this deal might be able to be put together. So here's what I did. Jump over and I just typed in mortgage calculator because I just want to run some scenarios. So what I've got is home price of 160,000. You know what? Let's change it. Let's assume that we're gonna have to put in 40K, because I know we're not gonna be able to do it for less than that. Down payment of 36,000, and the down payment's gonna vary. I'm gonna leave this at 20%, but there may be deals that are good enough that you don't have to leave money into these at all. Let's do a 20-year term, 7%. The reason I'm doing 20 is because most banks, if they're gonna lend to you on a rental property, typically they're going to want a 20-year term and not a 30, like your standard property that you would own. So I put in the zip code of the property. Now over here, I also changed the taxes because I remember that the property taxes, as you remember, I said they were kind of high compared to Nashville. I was like, whoa. So I typed in, I think I did 3,200 total, which was $275 a month. Homeowners insurance, I'll leave at 66, but that's also something that you could verify to get the numbers really accurate. If you were looking to actually say, okay, we're like, we went from 30,000 feet, now we're probably down at like 10,000 feet. We're digging in a little bit more, like we're getting a little bit closer. We're figuring out what this whole thing is going to look like a little bit closer. So you can get even better when you start getting rehab estimates on the actual house and then start actually making calls and getting estimates on like homeowners insurance and things like that. You can get super accurate, but that's not the goal right now. The goal right now is to be able to create a system that you can move quickly and analyze one of these deals in like 10 minutes so that you could do a bunch of them. So let's leave it like it is. Update $1,457 per month. So a lot of people in their mind, they would go, wait, my principal, interest, taxes, and insurance, which is all the standard kind of mortgage things that typically get escrowed and bundled together, are $1,450 a month. That's at $180,000. So there's rehab money built in there. I'm putting $36,000 down for my down payment, and it rents for $2,146 a month through Section 8. I did it. I found a cash flowing deal, and the answer is maybe. But there's more steps that we have to go through because there are more expenses that are associated with a rental. So if you look over here, I've put some of those down. Now, property management, we're gonna move this 2146 down here. 10% of 2146, because you're gonna use a property management company. And maybe you're not, maybe you're gonna do it yourself. But if you're gonna do it yourself, you should be setting aside this money and paying yourself a property management fee, or at least putting it as like a buffer savings over in an account to make sure that that 10% is accounted for, because at some point you may decide that you want somebody else to manage the thing for you. Let's see, 2146 times 0.10 equals 214.60 a month. Obviously, that's a very easy thing to do in your head. I just am a dum-dum, and so I'm not doing it. Vacancy and maintenance. Now, with Section 8, I would argue that vacancy may be less of a problem, especially if you've got a 4-bedroom. Like the vacancy may be much longer, but we're going to put in another. When I say much longer, what I mean is the tenant may stay a lot longer, so you'll have less vacancy. Let's put in another 214.60. Now, CapEx, 5% for CapEx, and this is literally just an account that you're going to set aside for, like if a water heater goes out, or if over time an HVAC unit goes out, a roof, whatever you need. But that's one reason I like doing a rehab that's pretty heavy on the front end, because if you've replaced water heater, HVAC, electric panel, roof, windows, if you've done all that up front to force equity and to make the deal work, what you've also done is created yourself a runway of, in theory, having very little maintenance on the property. So 5% instead of 10% is $107.30. So what we would do then is we would take the 2146, was it 2146? Yep, minus 536.50 minus, so that's 1609.50. 1609.850. That is your actual net, basically after expenses that you can plan on. That's your actual net, 1609.50. Now, if you'll remember, your mortgage payment was $1457. So what does that mean? That means that you actually legitimately have a rental property that's cash flowing $150 a month. Now, is that super sexy? Nope, it's not super sexy. I'll explain to you why I think that this deal could work with these numbers based on the assumptions that we've made. If it would rent for $21.46, if you could put 20% down, and if you were all into the house for $180. Let's run some more calculations real quick, and I'll show you how quick and easy it is to just make some tweaks to see some options. And you're going to want to write this down. There are some variables that won't change. The 2146 rental won't change. All the expenses that we're paying for management, maintenance, vacancies, CapEx, those don't change. What's going to change over here, we're going to go back to mortgage calculator, and what we're going to do is we're going to say, what if it's 200,000? Update, 1611 per month. So just like that, if my rehab estimate was off and it doesn't cost me 40,000 to do the rehab, but it costs 60, all of a sudden, 1611 mortgage. Now remember, 1609.50 was what the basically the net cash flow was the net cash flow was. This 1609.50 right here, that was the 2146 minus all these expenses. So right here, what we just did was we created something that is a dead break even, which tells me if nothing changes off this list right over here on the mortgage calculator sheet, 200K being all in, putting 20% down on a 20-year term with a 7% interest rate, that's all you can do. That's it. Unless the rents are a lot more, which I'm going to assume that they're not. Let's play around some more. So let's say you have 60,000 to put down. So remember, we're at 1611, 1456. So that extra 20 grand buys you $150 a month in cash flow. And that gets you almost right back down to where we were with the payment before. Let's say you can't do that and you can just do the 40. So we're going to just stick with the 40,000. But let's say you're able to get a 30-year loan on the place. And let's say you're able to get it at 6. This is where things get wild. $1,330 a month. So the price you've paid and the down payment are exactly the same, but the fact that you've stretched the term out and you've got a little bit better of an interest rate, $13.30 a month. So remember, now we're talking you're clearing $300 a month, which is amazing. Now let's go back to the good old days, just for fun. Let's go back 3.5% on a 30-year, same terms, update. That'd be nice, wouldn't it? Those days are gone on investment properties, more than likely. So, but did you see how quickly I went through that? Just to kind of play around and see. Like, if you've got 100 grand that you've got sitting, do you actually have to put all 100,000 into this deal to make it make sense? You can mess around inside this mortgage calculator and figure that out. So this deal is interesting. The questions that need to be answered are, how much rehab does it take to actually get the property up and going? How much rehab would it take? And then does it actually rent for $21.46 a month? Like, those are kind of the basics. But in order for me to proceed, what I would probably do at this point is I'd probably reach out to the realtor and I'd say, hey, curious about the house. And I would call them and I would say, can you tell me a little bit about the owner? Why are they selling it? Why is it in the shape that it's in? Because remember, the thing is beat and they haven't done any of the rehab at all. Like, the thing is just sitting here on the edge of a hill, looking all horrible. What work has already been done to the property? And basically what I'm doing is trying to get closer to answering two things. What's it going to rent for? And how much is it going to take to rehab the property? I'm also going to find out if he's got room, because this is $140,000. If he hasn't gotten offers, and this dude's been listing this property off and on for a long time, if he's not getting offers, I may say, I'm not paying you $140 for it. I'll pay you $110. But what else have we learned on this? What we have learned is in this whole area right here, if I click off, we have learned some key indicators, not about that one house, but about this entire area inside of Bellevue, this whole riverside right here. Now, there will be some nuances, but we can make some pretty big assumptions. If we see a for sale by owner come up, or if we see something on Craigslist or Facebook Marketplace, or we get hooked up with a wholesaler and he sends us a deal that you can purchase for $110, you can put $60 into it, you can make it into a 4-bedroom, like, we kind of already know those numbers. And so I would keep a file on this area specifically so that we're not having to go all the way back to zero and start completely over. We've got some really good information on this segment of Bellevue already. Let's go buy a rental property. If you need money to potentially take something like this down, you can look us up, NashvilleMoneyGuys.com. And what we would do is essentially, if you found a great deal, like let's say you found this house, but you got it under contract for $90,000, which to me just sounds like a smoking deal, and it's going to take $60,000 to renovate it. We may actually loan you the entire amount on this property so that you could buy it, you could fix it up, you could put a renter in there, and then you could work with the bank to refinance you out. Because it's very unlikely, in my opinion, that a bank is going to want to finance you on a property like this because of the amount of rehab that it's going to take. I feel relatively confident that with maybe another couple of hours worth of work driving the area via Google Maps and Street View, I could become very comfortable with this area and make some really good assumptions that will probably be accurate, and learn how to be a very shrewd investor into this section of Bellevue, Nebraska. Thanks for watching. I'm Brandon McDonald with the Nashville Money Guys.